Okay.
Senator Siewert.
I wanted to go to, which I think would sit here, issues around the flag and access to former ATSIC documents. So I understand that there was a formal license, or a license for reproduction of the Aboriginal flag held by ATSIC.
That's good.
And the ATSIC annual report for 2003-4 listed the flag licence as one of its intangible assets. Now, what I'm trying to do is ascertain whether we can get a copy of that licence and the documents around the acquisition of it. So can I ask, I don't know who's responsible,
Yes,
but
Senator, I'll take that.
can we get...
I can today give you the agreement.
Right, okay.
Two things redacted.
Yep.
One is the dollar value.
Sorry,
The dollar value of
Yep.
the agreement because of the commercial nature of that with Mr Thomas.
So you've redacted...
I've redacted that, and I've redacted some privacy details, addresses and things like that. But otherwise, it is as is, if that meets your requirements.
Yeah, if you could table that,
I can
that
table
would be appreciated. Can I ask... thank you, that is much appreciated. What advice you have provided to government in terms of where the issue is at the moment? You'll be aware that many organisations are being asked to pay, community-based organisations are asked to be paying large amounts of money, and whether it's actually to use the flag or admin fee, the fact is it's costing organisations a large amount of money, and this issue needs to be resolved.
Senator, so the minister met with Mr Thomas in June. I think it was the 20th of June.
That's correct.
And he discussed Mr Thomas's perspective on this. The government's position is that this is a matter of Mr Thomas's copyright, and that he is entitled, and he's, as you know, he's been through the courts on this matter, to have his copyright affirmed, that he's entitled to enter into commercial arrangements. And we understand there are three commercial agreements that he has. One with Carolyn Richardson Flags, trading as Flag World, and that's for the manufacture and sale of the Aboriginal flag. Gifts Mate Proprietary Limited, previously Urubi Art, for the sale of products bearing a reproduction of the flag, and WAM Clothing Proprietary Limited to reproduce the flag on clothing. The concern is around the execution of the WAM clothing agreement. I have written to Mr Worcester, the head of WAM Clothing, and sought to explore this issue with him. I requested a meeting to explore the issue with him. Yesterday I was handed a letter from his lawyers saying that, you know, direct all correspondence to the lawyers. So I'm still very keen to meet and explore that. But the government's position has been clear that it's a matter of Mr Thomas's copyright, and the government doesn't intend to override that.
Can I ask, thank you, can I ask, have you sought advice under what rights the Commonwealth has? Because the flag's listed under the Flag Act.
Well, the rights, I think Mr Borman's got some, I've got more detail on the...
Under the Flags Act, Senator, all Australians have a right to fly it, display the flag, etc. That's different from a commercial right, which is then covered under copyright law.
So if somebody's just using the flag, say on a one of the issues, I'm sure you're aware, is on sports apparel, and for community-based organisation. So is that covered by the provisions under the Flag Act to use that when they're Aboriginal people proudly displaying the flag, which they consider their flag, on sports gear, for example, where they're playing at a community level, for example?
Senator, look, I'm not an expert on the Flags Act, but the Flag Act applies to flying our official
flying
flags.
the flag.
Yeah.
So the use of the flag by other people on clothing, for example, comes under the licence agreement with WAM Clothing, and that's what WAM Clothing are, if you like, enforcing. They're enforcing their legal agreement with Mr. Thomas around reproducing the flag on clothing. So if someone else reproduces the clothing, they are exercising their rights as the licensee.
Thank you. Can I ask why the Commonwealth's decided they're not going to consider acquiring copyright or entering into more formal discussions about that?
My understanding, I wasn't at the meeting in June, but my understanding is that Mr. Thomas does not want that to happen. He wants to retain his copyright.
Thank you.
Senator Councillor.
I'd like to follow on the same line of
Sure.
questioning. I'm conscious of some of the time constraints. What time did the Minister seek to leave?
We're breaking at 12:20.
Right, okay.
20 past.
Look, can I just ask a follow-up about the flag?
Sure, and then I'll go to Senator McMahon and Senator O'Sullivan, and then back to Senator McCarthy.
Thank you very much for tabling the documents. It was a document I had also sought. Can I ask whether the department has received advice about clause 2 or paragraph 2 in the document that's been tabled, which goes to the licence that's been granted to ATSIC and the regional councils, and any body of elected Indigenous representatives that may succeed them? What is the department's view about the interaction between that licence and the copyright and the licensing agreements that have been enacted between, it's Mr. Thomas, isn't it, and Caroline Richardson Flags, WAM Clothing, and the third organisation?
Gifts Mate is the third.
Yeah, Gifts Mate.
Sorry, can you say?
Gifts Mate.
Gifts
Yeah,
Mate.
GIFTS Mate Proprietary Limited is the third organisation. Previously, Birubi Art Proprietary Limited.
I see. Have we got advice about the interaction between the licences that's been allocated here in this documentation and these other licensing arrangements?
Senator, they're two very different arrangements. One's a commercial arrangement when we don't have visibility of those agreements at all. They're between the copyright owner and those organisations, those companies. The ATSIC agreement was with ATSIC or bodies elected Indigenous representatives. For the purpose of our agency, we fly the flag, etc. proudly, but that we're governed under the flag right, the Flags Act.
Yes, I mean, this is I'm not so concerned about whether the department is engaged in some kind of breach of copyright or infringing Mr. Thomas's copyright. I'm concerned about the broader policy issue, which is First Nations people wanting to use their flag. And I'm asking about the effect of the licence, which is established in this document that's been tabled this morning. What is the department's advice about the effect of that document?
So we haven't had advice of the interactions between commercial agreements and the non-commercial ones, such as the ATSIC one or any other non-commercial that Mr. Thomas may have in place. And I must reiterate that we have no visibility of the commercial agreements. They're private agreements, so we wouldn't be able to scrutinise the terms of those private agreements to determine the impact on other agreements.
Okay. Two questions. You say you have no visibility on any of these other agreements with the three private organisations. And I understand that the Commonwealth has none of that documentation. They've got...
The commercial agreements, no, they're between...
Yes, I understand, but they haven't been provided to you through any of the discussions that Mr Griggs or the Minister has been engaged in?
So,
No.
Senator, what we're trying to do here is to... what I'm trying to do in terms of WAM clothing is to explore, what the art of the possible is here. I don't want to make this any more divisive than it already is. And I think that's a really important position from our perspective, is to try and resolve this in a way that doesn't destroy the unifying nature of this flag. I think that's really important. So I think I know where you're coming from on that clause 2. I understand where you're coming from. I'm happy to give you some advice on notice around that interaction.
So, am I clear that the department has to date not sought any legal advice about the effect of the agreement that's been tabled here?
There is no settled view at the moment around the applicability of this agreement in terms of the specific nature around ATSIC and representative bodies, and then it flowing through to the NIAA.
Mr Griggs, I'm asking a process question.
Yep.
Has advice been sought on that question?
On the interaction of the ATSIC agreement to the commercial agreements, Senator?
On the effect of
No.
the licence agreement that's been tabled today, has the department sought advice from the government solicitor, from an external legal source, from in-house counsel within your organisation? Has any legal advice at all been sought about the effect of this document?
Yeah, on whether the current agreement applies, we've sought some advice. There's different views around whether it's still in play or still applies. We haven't sought advice, to my knowledge, on the interaction of that agreement with the commercial agreements, because we don't have the commercial agreement.
From whom has the advice been sought, Mr Bullman?
Sorry?
From whom has the advice been sought?
In-house, internally.
Internally.
Yes.
And is that just about how NIAA can use it, or
That's
other?
correct.
Okay, because this relates to, as now I've had a chance to have a look at it, any bodies of elected Indigenous representatives that may succeed, ATSIC presumably. So did the advice that you sought just relate to NIAA or to the extent of other elected Indigenous representatives?
NIAA, there's no bodies, elected Indigenous representative bodies that succeeded the ATSIC Commission after its abolition in 2005, as this sort of proposed at the time of its drafting.
Okay.
So there was no one we could sort of test legal advice on against another Indigenous elected body. They closed the representative elements of ATSIC, and there's no other elected Indigenous representatives that succeeded ATSIC.
So the key word there is succeed.
Succeeded ATSIC. Yes, it sort of considers that there would have, should ATSIC have evolved or changed, that there would have been elected Indigenous representative bodies that reflect, say, the old regional council structure.
Sorry, Senator McAllister.
Mr Griggs, I asked you, a few clicks back, I asked you what your objective was, and you said your objective was not inflaming or making the situation more divisive, I think, or words to that effect. Is that the sum total of the government's objective or policy objective in relation to the issues that are presented by WAM's behaviour in seeking to enforce its rights?
WAM is enforcing its legitimate right under the licence.
Yes, but what is the government's policy objective in relation to the Aboriginal flag?
Well, the policy objective is that the flag continues to be seen as a unifying symbol and not a divisive one, which is why we're trying to work through this in the way we are. It's not as you can see, this is not. It's not black and white, and we have to work through this in a considered way.
Does the government believe that the Aboriginal flag ought to be for all Australians and all Aboriginal people in particular to use?
Yes, and I think the minister has made that point publicly.
Thank you. It was simply that I didn't want you to leave this committee or anyone listening with the impression that the government's agenda here was merely tactical to avoid having conflict. There is a higher purpose, which is to secure the use of the flag for its intended purpose.
And as a unifying symbol, which is what I was really driving at.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McAllister. I might now go to Senator McMahon.